In this video, I want to talk about the local and long-term outlook for the price of the LUNC asset. And before we get directly to that, I'd like to point out one important thing. In the period from late November to early December last year, we had a strong upward movement, which took place on high volumes and did not break through the obvious to many market participants level of the daily chart from November 5, 2022. Thus, within this upward movement, due to the presence of high volumes, many small players were attracted to buy. This created a liquidity zone under the levels from November 8, 2023 and under the absolute low, i.e., August 2023. Since the breakdown of this red level was not allowed, those longs which were accumulated here within the upward movement were not allowed to exit, and the liquidity zone below the yellow and red levels was preserved, because after setting this local maximum, the price turned downward quite briskly, and all these longs which were gained on the upward impulse turned out to be locked. Subsequently, we had a lower correction point of this entire upward momentum formed on January 23, 2024, and it served as a kind of a minimum level of this local range. It should be noted that after setting this minimum price, we have formed a second upward impulse, less spectacular than the first one, but it also attracted traders' attention well and attracted buyers to this asset, thus replenishing the liquidity zone even more and adding another. Intermediate liquidity zone under the level of January 23. Subsequently, here also within this upward movement there was no breakdown of an obvious level, which was staged on the spike of the first motion, so the mechanics here were exactly the same as the first time. It didn't let all these longs get out of their positions, also locked them in. And subsequently on April 13th, here already on increased volumes, we made the first accumulation in the first intermediate liquidity zone. Thus we get the information that the LUNC has now been moved into the accumulation stage by a major player. We'll see some more of these large volumes on the move down in the future, particularly on June 22nd. In the zone of interest of a big buyer, i.e., in the area of the tail of the bar, on April 13th, when the liquidity of the first intermediate stop zone was collected. And now we see that the July 5 move is downward. It touched the red level from November 9th but broke through it by a small percentage. In this connection, we understand that the big player did it specially in order to give further this local descending movement, which by analogy with how it was earlier in stronger scales, should attract buyers to this asset and help to form a liquidity zone under the level of absolute minimum prices, i.e., under the yellow level. And subsequently, when within the framework of this local movement all this was accomplished and the volumes confirm it, we again turn down to the previous local lows. We have already broken through the red level well, but we came almost exactly to the level of the absolute minimum, and it happened on August 5, and you can also see, this day has high volume, a good buying tail and a narrow spread sell, which indicates the intention of a major player to accumulate, but at the same time it is not yet ready to break the absolute minimum. So this is a kind of LPS signal, the so-called last point of support. It is being done for exactly the same reasons as the July 5 movement. That is still under the level of absolute minimum, that is here, liquidity is not enough to break through it at once and accumulate. That is the necessary position by such a movement. The big player will not be able to accumulate yet. So now he needs to make an upward movement again in order to attract some buyers. And within the framework of this expectation, it is now logical to expect the price to move upwards, perhaps even up to this yellow level, without breaking it. Just by analogy with the way it was earlier within, for example, the first movement, when it was not brought to the breakdown of the similar level of the daily chart. Yes, the price can now theoretically go lower, most likely to the amplitude of the bar from August 8th, but we probably should not have a strong breakdown of the level which was set on August 5th, because if it was not done immediately, it will be inexpedient to do it before there is no good upward movement, because the liquidity has not been replenished yet, the attention of traders has not been attracted yet. To do this well, we need a longer and more strongly impulsive uptrend. So within that, even with a potential correction to around 7,000, we're going to have to see this move up one way or another, and it could potentially yield almost 2x all the way up to the 13,000 price with a little bit of upside higher. After that, we will have to reverse, and by analogy with the way it was before, all these longs which will be on this movement, they will be locked in the downward movement, they will replenish the liquidity zone in the form of their liquidation stops, and the big player will be able to accumulate due to this. This will be confirmed by the presence of high volumes on the downside on a breakdown of this yellow level. And thus the breakdown is likely to be in the neighborhood of 20%, meaning price will come to the 4,000 to 4,500 area, from where it will have to turn globally already on the breakdown of the mark which was set here. Since it kind of was also a reversal signal of LPSY, the last resistance point, and that level now looks very prominent, obvious. And later, when there will be a global upward movement, they will short this movement and take out liquidation stops above these marks, which are very well visible to everyone. Thus, after the price reaches 4,000 to 4,500, one way or another we will have to come to the price values around 30,000 in the long term, which will be the target zone of fixation. Thank you for your attention. If you found the review interesting and useful, then comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel and put likes. In the description of this video you can find a link to my private subscription Telegram channel. It costs $150 a month. In return, you get my analytics on other instruments, specific trades, entry points with stop orders, movement targets. This is indicated not only in this format, but also here will be given textual and graphical explanations. The logic of positions will be analyzed, i.e., why it makes sense to open certain positions and why they are opened in general. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye everyone, until next time.